Welcome back to another episode of Around the World. This is episode 8. We officially had our shortest session between episodes, so not much to talk about today, but we do have a couple notes and maybe the best night of basketball so far with what happened on Saturday night. The first thing I want to mention before the community question is we just had a report not too long ago, about 10-20 minutes ago, that Greg Popovich is out indefinitely with health issues, the coach of the San Antonio Spurs. I'm wishing all the best for him. That is just the worst news you could possibly hear. There'd be nothing worse than for Greg Popovich to not be able to end his coaching career out on his own terms. So I do hope he's able to get back to health. I hope it's nothing serious. And I hope he's able to go out on his own terms at the end of his coaching career. So wishing the best for him. Now, time to get into the community question, which is going to be the most surprising player to start the season. I think I'm going to do a full episode talking about players like this at some point over the course of the next couple weeks. But my current pick is going to be Dennis Schroeder, averaging 24 and 8 and guiding the Nets to, I think, a better start than we all would have expected. They did just lose to the Pistons last night. But overall, a 3-4 start for the Nets. I don't think anybody would have expected that when you look at the roster. When you look at, honestly, the other teams out east, thinking that there's probably 6 or 7, if not more, teams that are guaranteed to make the play-in or higher with the Pacers, Magic, Heat, all that sort of stuff. So, honestly, seeing them at the mid-table of the Eastern Conference is really an exciting sign for them, and I think they made the right head coach decision. It's just, it looks so much better, and a lot of that can be attributed to Cam Thomas, but also Dennis Schroeder, who's currently having a career year. Now, let's go ahead and get into the title of the video, what you guys all came for, the most fraudulent start in the NBA. My definition of this is not a team that's ridiculously overperforming or anything like that. It's just going to be the most likely team to not finish where they have started, similar to contender versus pretender, and we'll do more contender versus pretender as the standings start to shape up, and I go, okay, this team's the 3 seed, but can I see them having success in the playoffs? That sort of idea. But for now, we're just going to go with the team that I think has had the most fraudulent start so far this season, aka, like I said, the team that is the least likely to end up where they are. We have 3 teams, 2 core picks, and then 1 honorable mention. Starting first with a team that we talked about last week in the most surprising starts, and that is the Chicago Bulls. They currently are 3-3 and 5th out east. The reason I put them on this list is not necessarily that they are going to be awful, but the teams around them I just think are going to catch up. They currently stayed ahead of the Magic, who, did lose Paulo, but I still would expect the Magic to finish above them. Teams like the Hawks, who I think could be in a fight with them. Teams like the Pacers, obviously the Sixers and Bucks, who have gotten off to really slow starts and aren't fully healthy at the moment. So when you think of those teams, it's hard to see a world in which the Bulls are able to stay not even top 6, but in the upper half of the play and stay as a 7 or 8 seed. So I can't blame them for winning games early on. I'm not saying anything bad. It's just simply I cannot see a world in which the Bulls end up being the 5 seed or even being a 7 or 8 seed out east, especially when you see the start from teams like the Hawks, teams like the Nets, who we expected to be not great, that are still sitting around 500, and it feels like the Bulls have had a great start, and they're still sitting around 500. So I cannot see the Bulls finishing top 6 or even 7 or 8 out east. They are my number 1 biggest fraud in all of the NBA right now. Number 2 is the Golden State Warriors. 5-1 start for them. Currently 3 seed out west. A similar story to what I talked about with the Bulls. It's not necessarily a knock on them being bad. And I could say this for the other team I'm going to mention as well. It's just that it's hard to see them holding up this with how stacked that Western Conference is. The defense specifically has looked phenomenal. Obviously, the offense has been great, especially without Steph Curry. That's been the most surprising thing. I just can't see them being able to fend off these teams. Finishing top 3 in the West is going to be a tall order for anybody. I think the only team that we can all collectively say is going to finish top 3 out east is going to be the Thunder. Right, you still have the Mavericks, you still have the Warriors, of course, the Suns, you still have the Wolves and Nuggets, who have gotten off to not their best starts. There's so many teams, Mavericks, that can get going. It's just hard to believe that even if Curry comes back and stays healthy for the rest of the year, even if Buddy Hield plays so well, even if the defense stays as good as it is, it's just hard to see them staying in that 3 seed. But I will say, for the start of the season, they can absolutely be a top 6 seed. I believe I put them at 9 or 10 going into this year. because I was like, okay, they clearly improved, but so did pretty much everybody else out west. And even if they didn't improve, it's hard to see them adding those extra 8-9 wins that they need in that conference that's already so stacked. And they have proved me wrong to start the season. Obviously, it's only 6 games in, right? There's still 70 plus games to play, but they certainly look like they can be a top 6 seed. I just can't see them being a top 3 seed like they are right now. 5-1 start, currently ahead of teams like the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Wolves, the Grizzlies, the Nuggets. It's just hard for me to envision them being there for a full 82. Once again, though, great start for the Golden State Warriors. And our honorable mention, this is a team that I put as an honorable mention because I honestly just feel bad about it, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, 7-0, first out East. Similar story to the Warriors and the Bulls. Again, these guys are all pretty well the same. They look phenomenal, but just the odds that they can hold off the Celtics, the Knicks, and even if teams like the Bucks and Sixers can start to put stuff together, even if they can like play well, I can't see them holding them off. So I think they definitely, even with this start, whether or not this start holds up, maybe they go on a 3-3 stretch or whatever happens after this. The 7-0 start, which I think could honestly get even better to be 8-0, 9-0 if you look at their schedule, even with, like, you take the good start, and even if they have a tough stretch down later in the year, they're still going to be able to remain a top 4 seed, and I fully regret my choice now looking back at, obviously I didn't know Embiid was not going to be healthy, but looking back, I put the Cavs at 5 and said they're great. They're just not as good as those top 4 teams out East are going to be: Milwaukee, Philly, New York, and Boston. And I was wrong. Right now, it looks completely like I was wrong. Hopefully, they can stay healthy. I think they will definitely finish top 4. So this is not, once again, a knock on the Cavs at all. This team looks phenomenal. Everybody has found their role. Night to night, different players are having the big nights. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, I believe have all had nights where they have been the guy. But it's just hard for me to see them in an 82-game season knocking off the Celtics, knocking off the Knicks, and maybe even another team that has a phenomenal regular season. So I think the Cavs are looking great to finish as a top 4 seed out East, just not the 1 or 2 seed like they look to be right now. And there you have it. Those are the 3 teams. I mentioned was the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then the 2 teams were the Warriors and the Bulls. I said the Bulls, I think, are the biggest frauds so far to start this NBA season. Time to get into our weekly notes. Again, a little bit of a shorter episode today. It's going to be some shorter weekly notes. First thing I want to hit on is Vince Carter got his jersey retired. That is just an incredible thing to see. Someone that, even if I didn't get to watch his prime growing up, I got to watch growing up. And it just hits different when it's someone that you got to see. Like I said, didn't get to see his prime or anything crazy like that, but it's a surreal feeling seeing someone that you know that you watched getting their jersey hung up in the banner. So congrats to Vince Carter. He absolutely deserves it. And we also got a hilarious meme out of it when he's got his hands up, like yelling and looking at the banner. It's hilarious, but incredible night for the Raptors, not only getting that win, but also Vince Carter getting his jersey retired. Now into not real basketball topics, now into off-the-court topics, we have the whole Joel Embiid saga, and let me walk you through it if you have not heard about it. I heard about it last week before the whole reporter thing, shoving the reporter thing, happened. So, we get an update after the Sixers lost the other night that Embiid shoved a journalist after mentioning his late brother in an article. And this is the article, for those of you who have not heard it. If you saw Joel Embiid do this and thought, what the hell is he doing? This should explain why. This is the opening paragraph to an article. Professional writer. This is an opening to an article from a professional writer about Joel Embiid missing the start of the season. Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son, Arthur, as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to leave a great legacy for the boy, named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a Sixer. Already, why the hell is that being brought up? Then we get to this. Well, in order to be great at your job, you must first show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. The poor conditioning apparently seems to have delayed his debut this season. That is one of the most disgusting pieces of writing I have ever read in my life. Not only did he bring up his son out of nowhere. He also brings up his late brother, who died, as I mentioned, tragically. And then not only does he bring them up, which is already uncalled for, he then says Joel Embiid is not leaving them a good legacy. Are you kidding me? I can't remember the name of the writer. This guy needs to be ashamed of himself. And then it comes out this morning that he was like, I forgot, the front office or whatever was like defending the writer. Marcus Hayes is his name. But they come out defending. It's just a ridiculous story. And you're going to drive a guy who, yes, Embiid does not have the conference finals appearances and all that sort of stuff. You're going to drive an MVP, a superstar, out of your town with things like this. And then Embiid was quoted as saying, the next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you're going to see what I'm going to do to you, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences. That is what Embiid said, and I cannot be more in agreement with him. That is one of the most ridiculous things I have ever seen from a reporter. If he doesn't get fired, he deserves to be suspended, because that is absolutely ridiculous, absolutely uncalled for, and I cannot blame Joel Embiid at all, and I hope if you guys didn't know the story, you do now, and you can understand why he did that. Now, let's move on to a little bit more of a positive note for the 76ers and just get back into basketball. Paul George, first game tonight with the Sixers. I believe they play the Phoenix Suns. It did take a little bit over a week, nearly 2 weeks, for Paul George to get into this season, but it's exciting. We finally get an opportunity to see him with the Sixers, even if it's not the full roster. I don't think we're going to see Paul George at his peak. I would maybe expect a minutes restriction coming off that injury. They don't want to overdo him and immediately injure him again. So wouldn't surprise me to see him on a little bit of a minutes limit. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how Philly looks. Get a little bit of that load off of Tyrese Maxey, spread it out a little bit more. And honestly, the load for Tyrese Maxey might not go down. It might just make it easier for him. Just simply having another star next to him. Maybe he doesn't put up, 40 points, 35 points or whatever, but it allows him to maybe boost the efficiency up because he's getting better looks. So very excited to watch that game. That is one of the games I'm going to watch tonight. We have a 30-game slate, which I will talk about later. So it's going to be hard to keep eyes on a lot of these games, but I'm definitely going to be checking in with that Sixers-Suns game. Now, on to what was maybe the game of the year so far, and I could be saying that because I was actually there in person, and that is the Nuggets-Timberwolves game on Friday night. This was absolutely incredible. We had the Wolves start out extremely hot, going up, I believe 16 was the biggest lead at some point, and then Aaron Gordon puts up one of the greatest games we've seen from him as a Nugget, if not his greatest game as a Nugget. 30 points, ridiculously efficient. I think he was like 4 for 5 from 3 or 4 for 6 from 3. I remember just sitting there in person with one of my friends, just like, what the hell am I watching right now? As Aaron Gordon just couldn't miss pull-up middies, three-pointers, all that sort of stuff. And they pulled back, made it about even at halftime, stayed even throughout the third quarter, get into the fourth quarter, and the Nuggets pull away. They get up double digits. They get up 10, I believe, was their biggest lead of the game. And you have the Christian Braun dunk over Gobert, probably one of the plays of the NBA season so far. We do have the Donovan Mitchell game winner, which I'll get into a little bit later. But one of the best plays of the NBA season so far is Christian Braun dunks all over Rudy Gobert, gets in his face, yells about it. Rudy Gobert shoves him off of him. You have Westbrook come over from the other side. Rudy Gobert backs up because Westbrook is full sprinting at him. Aaron Gordon comes over, and I don't know if they show this on the broadcast, just starts pointing at Gobert, just pointing like you do when you dunk on someone, you point at him. He just pulls that out just for, not even kidding, 30 seconds straight, just pointing up and down at Rudy Gobert, get into the big scuffle, the double tech, all that sort of stuff. And then after all that happens, the Wolves come back, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker hits, I believe, 2 threes and a couple free throws. And then Ant hits a 3 and hits a floater. Rudy Gobert clamps up Christian Braun and then clamps up Jokic on the final possession, and the Wolves win the game. This game had absolutely everything. Highlights, fights, comebacks, close game, shot for the win, or for the tie, I guess I should say. It was an overall incredible game and a dream for the NBA, since it was a nationally televised game as well. And I was, like I said, lucky enough to be there for this game. So I think we currently have our contender for game of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets switched later on, if there's a super high scoring game or overtime buzzer beater, things like that. But right now, I think that's my pick for game of the year. And speaking of the best game in the NBA, we have maybe the best night in the NBA so far with what happened on Saturday night. The Thunder start us off by coming down double digits against the Clippers. Coming back down double digits against the Clippers to stay undefeated. They are 6-0 right now, and obviously that means they're the 1 seed out west. You also have another comeback that wasn't fully completed. The Rockets come back, I believe it was 31 points down, forced overtime against the Warriors, still lose. But Buddy Hield has another incredible game with Golden State, 27 points, 6 threes, efficient, just the perfect option even without Curry on the court. It's incredible. Like I mentioned in the last episode, I'm surprised it took this long for him to end up with the Warriors, but it has worked absolutely beautifully. Warriors are 5-1. And that was one of those games where it's like you look at the score and you go, holy hell, the Warriors are destroying them. And then you look back 20 minutes later and it's like, oh my God, it's a 5-point game. So that game was another incredible one to see. We get into another game on Saturday that I talked about as a little bit earlier, which is the Donovan Mitchell game winner to keep the Cavs undefeated. Giannis puts up one of the best games of the year for him, if not the best, 34-16 with 9 assists. Dame certainly puts up his best game of the season, 41 points and 10 3-pointers. Once again, it doesn't matter. The Bucks lose, drop to 1-5, but the Cavs stay undefeated. Donovan Mitchell hits the game winner with, I believe it was 0.2 or 0.3 left on the clock, a pull-up midi, and it was a true for-the-win shot. They were losing when he took the shot, and he made it, gave him the lead. So, incredible shot, very clutch, of course, from Donovan Mitchell. But the Bucks, again, I talked about it, I'm going to keep it nice and simple until it actually happens. Doc Rivers needs to be fired. When you have Dame doing this and Giannis doing that, and you still are losing, I understand the Cavs are the top seed out east right now, but you can't have that happen. You simply cannot have that happen. It's triple-double and a 40-point 10-3 game from your star, and you're still losing. So I am, like I said, going to leave it at that. I hope Doc Rivers gets fired over the course of the next coming weeks, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. Final game of that night that we will talk about is the Kings-Raptors. Once again, I mentioned it earlier. DeMar DeRozan has a phenomenal game, 33 points, but it's matched by RJ Barrett, 31 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. The Raptors survive somehow against the Kings without Scottie Barnes. No Scottie Barnes, and the Raptors still get it done. So that was a game that I got home late, and I turned it on, and I was like, wow, that was not what I was expecting from that game. Let me look at the box score again. I want to say there was something else that I had seen from that night. It might have been, I think Sabonis had like a crazy triple-double, I want to say. Yeah, Sabonis had 20 rebounds, 10 assists, 17 points. And as I mentioned, Scottie Barnes had that 31, 9, and 6. So just a ridiculous game. But the main story to come out of this game was not just the Raptors getting that win in overtime. It was the Drake and DeMar DeRozan beef. Drake goes on the broadcast, and honestly, fully on his own. The broadcast didn't fully mention this. Drake just brought it up on his own and said, if you ever put up an DeMar DeRozan banner, I'll go up there and pull it down myself. For those of you that are confused, DeMar DeRozan was in the Kendrick Lamar Not Like Us video, and obviously was a former Raptor, close with Drake, I would assume. So Drake kind of took that to heart. DeMar DeRozan then gets on a post-game press conference and comes out and said, he's going to have a long way to climb to take it down. Tell him good luck. So one of the most random beefs I think you'll ever have in an NBA season, having a rapper beef with an NBA player. And this is not the first time for Drake. He had the whole Kevin Durant stuff. He had the John Morant stuff as well. Just weird stuff happening tonight, or happening on that night on Saturday. So wanted to mention that. But yeah, probably the best night of NBA basketball so far. I certainly think it can be beaten. But honestly, sitting down watching those games on Saturday nights was incredible, and one of the best nights of basketball so far. And that leads us to today. Like I said, it's going to be a shorter episode since we only had 3 days of games. And we have a 30-game slate tonight to make up for tomorrow, which is Election Day, so there'll be no games on Tuesday. 30-game slate, some big games. Like I mentioned, Sixers, Suns. It's just going to be a fun thing to watch. You're going to sit down, and from, 6 o'clock all the way to midnight, you're just going to have multiple games happening at the same time. It's going to be really, really exciting to watch. Going back to what I talked about last week, undefeated teams. I said that I believe the Thunder would be the last one standing and that the Cavs could lose. Neither of them lost. Thunder still undefeated, Cavs still undefeated. So I'm going to make my pick again for the most likely to remain, and my pick is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. They play the Bucks tonight, who we just saw them beat, despite a crazy Giannis performance, crazy Dame performance. So I think if they have even mediocre games or average games or even slightly above average, I still would see the Cavs winning this game, barring a disappointing performance from one of their, or honestly more than one of their top 4 guys. They then go on and play the Pelicans, who are massively injured. Zion just sat out the other night, although I would probably expect him to play in that game. But yeah, Zion sat out. You have the DeJounte Murray injury. I want to say Herb Jones and CJ McCollum both got hurt as well. So it's just going to be a tough night and a tough few weeks for the Pelicans. I think the Cavs are going to remain undefeated. And the main reason why is because the Thunder played the Magic, yes, without Paulo, and the Mavericks just dumped on them the other night, but they also play the Denver Nuggets. Now, they did just destroy the Denver Nuggets on opening night that Wednesday, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Denver gets back at them. Denver is such a good team. All it takes is, a good shooting night from MPJ, and Jokic is going to easily be able to drop probably a 25-point triple-double. So if Jokic gets help from even one of his guys, I believe Jamal Murray is still going to be out with that concussion. The Nuggets can definitely put up a fight in this game and go out there and beat the Thunder. So we'll see. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all if when I come back here on Friday, the Thunder are 8-0 and the Cavs are 9-0. It's a very realistic possibility. But I just personally think if I had to pick one, I'm picking the Cavs to be the most likely to be undefeated come Friday. And we've made it to the end of the episode. Like I said a couple times, a shorter episode with only having 3 days and Sunday literally having like 3 NBA games on, so not much to talk about in this episode, but we did hit on what was a phenomenal day of basketball on Saturday. Once again, well wishes to Greg Popovich. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you guys so much for watching or listening. I really do appreciate it. If you did watch over on YouTube, all episodes can be found on Spotify, same name around the world. And if you are listening on Spotify, all episodes of me actually talking to you can be found over on YouTube. Link will be in the description of both YouTube and Spotify. You can also check me out on TikTok. I post short form content of these videos as well as other NBA news as it happens. Hopefully more videos coming out soon. We'll have some NBA story videos like voiceover videos, Mike Korzemba style, coming out soon, as well as some Sims coming out over the course of the next month or so. So once again, if you made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you for the next episode of Around the World.